Welcome to another edition of View from the Bleachers. I'm Tim Jones, and I'm coming to you from my lovely, spacious Southwestern style living room, which I found by grabbing this Google image and inserting it over a green screen. Hey, let's see how well you know me. One of the following is something I have never done. Can you guess? 1. Eaten oysters. 2. Driven 1,300 miles with a rabbit and a parakeet. 3. Gone skinny dipping. 4. Jumped out of an airplane. Well, if you had guessed eaten oysters, you are correct. I've never done it. What can I say? I'm a picky eater. But also a shout out to the many of you supportive YouTube followers who guessed that the one thing I had never done was humor writing. Thanks, guys. In case you guessed D, jumped out of an airplane, you would be wrong because I actually did do that once. It almost resulted in my untimely death, and I'm not making this up. More about how I almost died, all because of my sister on the other side. It's true, I did jump out of an airplane, and no, it wasn't because the plane had become overridden by poisonous snakes and this was the only option to survive. No, I did it completely voluntarily. Now, normally I would never have done something so stupid. It wasn't even my idea. You can blame my sister for this entire reckless fiasco. That's one of my favorite photos of me and my sister, back at a time when she came up with this lame idea. For the purpose of this story, and out of respect for my sister's reputation, I'm going to refer to her as Betsy because, well, first of all, that is her name, and second of all, I've never given a rat's ass about my sister's reputation. The year was 1982. Betsy and I were both attending the Ohio State University, and one day, for reasons unfathomable to me, she quipped, "Hey, let's go skydiving." I could only deduce that she was off her meds, or perhaps she was looking for a creative way to avoid working on a term paper. In any event, I replied as any loving older brother would. I berated her for being an idiot. But, my sister can be extremely persuasive, by which I mean she questioned my masculinity. So eventually, after badgering me for what seemed like 3 days, but probably was closer to 11 minutes, I caved. Betsy discovered some outfit called Skydive Green County in a rural community called Xenia, Ohio, where the cows outnumber people 50 to 1. We dove into an intensive full-day crash course on skydiving, which culminated in a static line jump out of a Cessna plane from 5,000 feet. Now, at noon, the class broke for a 45-minute lunch. It took longer than expected for my last meal to be served, so Betsy and I arrived back 15 minutes late. I figured we couldn't possibly have missed anything important in that short interval of 15 minutes, and it turns out I was mistaken. Perilously so. After 7 hours of training, like the cows that surrounded the airstrip, we were herded onto single-engine planes in groups of 3. Everybody, including my sister, was in a great mood, laughing and joking. Everybody, that is, except this one guy who bore a close resemblance to me. That's because I'm talking about me, if that wasn't clear. You see, my heart was pounding in my throat. All I could think about was, how in the world did I let my crazy, impulsive sister corral me into doing such a daredevil act of insanity? Worse yet, I didn't even use a 50% off Groupon. My only consolation was that as a law student, I could someday sue my sister for wrongful death. Or maybe not. My stomach churned at the thought of leaping to my untimely death. Meanwhile, my sister and the other jumper in our plane laughed and chatted like they were watching an episode of The Simpsons. Was Betsy so heartless as to be giggling at my impending demise? I wanted to crawl under my bed covers with my childhood teddy bear, Sparkles. He was my best friend until I reached college. Then suddenly, bam! The jump master slammed the door shut, and an instant later, we were airborne. Oh my God. In minutes, we climbed to jumping altitude. Then came the moment of truth. The jump master pulled open the door. I could feel my grip on reality slipping away. I started to feel faint. The sound of rushing wind was deafening. Until you actually do it yourself, it is impossible to understand how surreal it feels to stare out of an open airplane door thousands of feet in the sky, knowing that you're about to do the stupidest, scariest thing you've ever done. You're about to leap out of a plane. And I actually paid someone to make me do this? What the hell's wrong with me? If I survive this jump, I would for sure need to seek some serious counseling to figure out how I let my sister rope me into this. So there I was, staring out at the vast expanse of sky, and I looked down at the earth. It was surreal to realize that there I was, literally sitting halfway out of a plane with no seatbelt, no flight attendant call button to ask them to talk me out of this, or for that matter, to request a last meal of peanuts or Chex Mix. At that moment, I finally saw my sister for the evil being that she truly was. She was trying to kill me. I could hear a voice beckoning me. It was the jump master yelling, "Who wants to go first?" Betsy shouted, "I do, I do." Huh? She wanted to go first? Maybe she was plotting a murder-suicide. I don't know. It was so confusing. Before I knew it, Betsy had jumped out the door, screaming with glee. I sighed in despair, knowing that the very last words I would ever speak to my sister were, "Oh, shit." "Who's next?" boomed the jump master. Well, finally it was my turn. All I could think about was, how did I get here? And did I remember to put my clothes in the dryer before I left? You know, you think of the most random thoughts in the moments before your imminent death. Terrified, I inched out further and further, and then I just leaped into the sky. And to be clear, I was jumping solo. None of this wimpy tandem jump with a skydiving instructor strapped to my back like they do nowadays. No, I was all alone. For the first 5 seconds, I felt the rush of air in my face. Suddenly, the static line pulled my ripcord and my chute opened. Well, sort of. Remember that part about what could possibly be that I might miss that was so important by arriving late to the afternoon session? Well, it turns out this is the part I missed, where they discussed what to do if your chute doesn't open. Now, technically, my chute did open, but only partially. The cords were twisted so tightly around themselves that the chute would not fully open to slow my descent. The precarious situation that I found myself in even has a name. It's called a barber pole. Now, while this guy here is not me, this is what a barber pole looks like. Because the cords are tangled up, the chute will not open fully. So you keep accelerating when you're supposed to be slowing down. Oh my goodness. I could have easily remedied my precarious situation had we only arrived back from lunch on time. A terrifying thought flashed through my brain. Did Betsy seem to linger over lunch? Had she planned this all along? Fortunately, the instructor was on the ground shouting at me through a megaphone. The ground instructor, "Hey, jumper, you're stuck in a barber pole." Me, "What's that? What do I do?" The ground, "Remember what we went over in class right after lunch? Just do that." Great, I think. As I was plummeting to earth at a rate roughly 8 times faster than I was supposed to, the instructor frantically explained that I had to rock myself in a counterclockwise direction to unravel the cords. Well, incredibly, it worked. I got my chute to open fully just in time for a very bumpy, very hard landing. The good news is I actually safely landed pretty close to the target I was shooting for. The better news is that my sister, wow, she veered wildly off course and ended up doing a faceplant in a cornfield about a half a mile away. Serves her right for coming up with this nefarious scheme. A lot of people don't believe me. They think I'm making it up. Perhaps you're a doubter too. Well, here you go. This is an actual photo, an unretouched one, proving once and for all that I had a beard back then. And yet to this day, my wife still doesn't believe me. Honest, honey, I had a beard. What's the takeaway from this true story? Well, I'm not really sure. But one thing's for sure. Never, ever listen to any idea that my sister suggests to you. She might just be plotting to kill you. Probably not, but hey, why take chances? That's all I'm saying. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please click on the subscribe button below and share this video with your friends or anyone you'd like to annoy. And for more of my humor, you can always visit my website, viewfromthebleachers.net.